Hello, listeners. This is Janine
and Kristen
from Henrico Casa. You are listening to our podcast, Vigilant Voices.
Living life every day.
Hello, listeners. Thank you for joining us on this lovely fall day. I know October is known for many things, right? Fall, football, apple picking. It's a great time of year. But we also wanted you to know that October is recognized as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. It's a national effort that has been in place for tens of years to uplift the needs and voices and experiences of survivors of domestic violence. So knowing that, listener, you will not be surprised to hear that we invited Lily Miller from Safe Harbor to be with us as today's guest vigilant voice. Safe Harbor offers support to survivors of domestic violence to help them overcome their crisis and to transform their lives moving forward. And Lily specifically is a case manager at Safe Harbor's Sexual and Domestic Violence Shelter. So she's without a doubt the right person that we should be talking with today, because we want to talk about how to help victims, especially child victims who may have witnessed domestic violence. We want to help them heal. And so it's really important that Lily's with us to talk about that today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so glad you're here. Before we even talk about Safe Harbor and the organization's mission, we'd love to know about you. Like, what's your story? How did you get here?
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, I'm Lily Miller. I've been with Safe Harbor for a little over 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
I started as an intern there when I was working on my psychology degree in undergrad. And I feel like I was kind of led to this work throughout my life, honestly. My parents really instilled in me the importance of service and community. I grew up going on humanitarian aid trips and stuff. Yeah. So it's always been important to me to build community. And I think throughout school, I kind of learned a way to mesh my love for people and science and the science of humans.
Sure.
And that kind of led me to psychology, which then in turn led me to Safe Harbor.
Yeah. I love that. It was like a lifelong path to get where you are today.
Absolutely.
Yeah, living out your passion and your mission in life. That's awesome.
Thank you.
So that brought you here, right, to Safe Harbor, being a case manager. Big picture for listeners who don't know about Safe Harbor, what is the organization? What do you do? What's your mission?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, overall, our mission is to support survivors specifically of sexual and domestic violence and then human trafficking as well.
Okay.
We really work to kind of meet survivors where they're at in the crisis. So day one of coming out of a situation and then supporting them along the process of rebuilding their lives.
Yeah.
I think something that's really important to Safe Harbor is empowerment and empowering people to do it for themselves,
Sure.
Not always being the one to come up behind them and give them the steps, but kind of give them those tools so that they can make the decisions in their own lives.
Yeah, because it is their life, right? They have ownership of that.
Absolutely.
And that makes total sense. And I know, initially when I think of the word victim or survivor of domestic violence, sometimes I think of an adult who maybe was in an unhealthy relationship, right? But then the victims and other survivors are the children who may have been in that home or witnessed this type of violence. How are children affected by these types of situations?
Yeah, it's a hard question because there is definitely a spectrum, right?
Sure.
I work in the actual shelter. So, we have survivors that are staying with us from 3 days to 3 months, kind of just depending. And so obviously there's lots of kids running around as well.
Yeah.
And that's one part I love about being in the physical shelter is being able to see these families, getting to meet these kids and the little things of, helping them when they get back from school or whatever.
Yeah.
So I definitely see a wide range of how kids are affected. I think that for some, it makes them mature very quickly, and become caregivers to their family, and you see kids who are trying to take care of their mom and de-escalate their parent, and then the opposite end of the spectrum, you see kids who learn their behaviors from the abuser, you know, and maybe even perpetuating that cycle with their other siblings, or with their mom, you know. And so I would say I see it particularly affecting like the preteen, young teenage.
Such a hard time anyway, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think for a lot of kids, that's when they're getting into relationships themselves.
That makes total sense.
And so, you know, they have that as an example. And, you know, whether it's them seeing that as an example as something that's okay, or them, you know, revolting on the other side and like having these really, really strong boundaries. But yeah, it definitely does affect them and affect their ability to, you know, build those trusting relationships. And another part that definitely changes the situation is if, you know, the kid was involved at all, if they witnessed, or if they were in the room for incidences, or even if there may have been physical violence with the children as well. So it really does depend. And so sometimes it's hard to see younger kids, you know, come in where you can kind of see they are acting out, you know, having trouble in school or with other kids, and that kind of thing. And then on the opposite side, you see these kids that you're like, how has your hard life like made you so sweet and so, you know, thoughtful and like making me gifts, you know, and like I'm like, you shouldn't even have to be here or know me, you know. So it's really special to be able to see like that spectrum.
You're right, and everyone responds to trauma differently, and everyone's experienced something differently, so that makes total sense. When you're like seeing and interacting with these children or teens, like, what is the goal you have in mind? Like, what are you trying to help them with or work towards?
We are mandated reporters at Safe Harbor, and so we have to make sure that we're still looking out for those things, whether it's from the survivor or the abuser. A lot of times with the kid, it's just like giving them a space to be real, be kids, you know? Just like, and also hopefully have an example of building some kind of trusting relationship again. You know, whether that's, you know, being able to tell me their random school drama, you know, or coming in and saying, you know, this is going on in my family and like I need someone to talk to, you know. We do offer counseling for kids too, so that's not something that I'm directly working with them in, but I am like, okay, which kids do I need to encourage stronger to go into this? So I'd say my goal definitely is just like giving them an outlet and giving them someone that they can kind of just be honest with.
Which is what they need. We say it a lot at CASA, like there's so many studies that show that having one kind of stable adult in your life can make such a key difference. And if you can be that stable person while they're in the shelter, that's fabulous.
Yeah, absolutely.
I heard you say the word space, and when I was looking on your website, I saw that term kind of a holding space a few times. Could you tell us more about what that means?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's something that, like, when you say it, it sounds like this magical phenomenon,
it does,
you know? And it's something that, honestly, if you are a friend or a teacher or a counselor or, you know, just really anyone interacting with other people, like you are doing that in your everyday. It's really just the concept of like meeting people where they're at, you know, and the same way with a friend. If a friend's upset, you're going to let them vent and not come in with like, okay, well, let's break this down.
Right.
You know, that's a really big thing, and just holding space for like whatever the reaction may be.
Gotcha.
You know, so people, like you said, are affected very differently by trauma. So, like, going to court may be really triggering for someone. And so, like, us going ahead and being aware of that and maybe not scheduling 3 other appointments for that day, right? And being just really, really conscious of what someone might need. And also just being very aware that you don't know what they need. You know? And so, like, trying to have those options, but also holding space for them to tell you and communicate what they need, I think is really important.
I hear you say that, and I think I know I do. Like, I go into things with expectations of maybe like how much time it'll take or how someone will react. And holding space means maybe letting go of those.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, exactly right. Like you said, coming in and not knowing how someone might react. Of like, one person might immediately break down, you know, and tell you everything about what's going on and show you these raw emotions, and the next person might not even want to tell you how it went.
Sure.
You know? And it's, you know, about like us not taking that personally too, where then if that person comes back and wants to talk later, we're not, you know, hurt by the last time, right? We're having that space to have the raw reactions.
Yeah, that makes sense. Kind of setting aside our expectations or our personal
Trying to,
thoughts. Trying to, right? It's a process. This is great, Lily. And so as we kind of start to wrap up, we often ask our guests to share their vision for children, because we each tend to have a positive vision that we're trying to work towards, right? And I saw online that Safe Harbor's vision is for a community with safe homes and healthy relationships, which rings true because at CASA we say our vision is for children to have a safe, healthy home. Right. But what about you, just as a vigilant voice for children in this world? Like, what is your personal vision for children?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely aligns with Safe Harbor a lot. You know, I think something that I personally love about Safe Harbor is that, like, we're always expanding based on our survivor experiences, which I think is something that's really important. I think that one thing we've really prioritized in the last few years is prevention work, which I think is one of the most important things for kids, is that, you know, going into schools, going into these spaces where kids are building relationships with adults and with other kids, and giving them examples of things that they may have experienced that aren't healthy, and then also communicating with them, you know, what a healthy relationship can look like. So for me, I mean, community is really number one. Whether it's, you know, in my job now, giving kids that outlet and connecting them with other organizations. That's a really big part of being a case manager, is making those connections. Not just giving them the services at Safe Harbor, but expanding that to what other things in your life do you need support in? And
like
then,
holistically.
And then things that are going to stay connected once, you know, you leave services with us. So with kids, you know, that can look like getting them connected to their school social worker, you know, and maybe McKinney-Vento and other things like that to build up their support systems. My overall goal is really letting them be kids. You know,
they deserve a childhood, right? Without a doubt.
So, you know, I think one of my favorite things is when, you know, family comes in, they're stressed, crisis mode, whatever, and within like the first week, you're starting to see the family come together again, whether it's them having movie nights, you know, and making popcorn, or swinging on the swing set outside, you know, and mom doing her thing is really nice to see. And so I always try to support that, whether it's, you know, encouraging them to do that or just giving them the space.
Oh, I love that. That's a beautiful picture. So we end our episodes with a simple call to action. So one just call to action is I'm going to suggest, listener, that you just look at our show notes, because I'm going to link to Safe Harbor so that you can learn more about Lily's organization. But the calls to action are generally something anyone and everyone can do to bring you one step closer to the vision that you just shared. So what would you leave us with today?
I would say just ask questions. I think that is really huge, something that like we kind of miss out upon in like our social media age a little bit. Whether it's, you know, the youngest of our voices to the oldest, I think we've kind of lost sharing our stories a lot of times. And like you were saying in the beginning, you know, that kind of leads to us not knowing what's going on in our communities and not knowing the problems that are in our own backyards. And so I'd say, whether it's, you know, you as a kid asking your grandma, or you as a grandma asking your, you know, great grandson or whatever, just talk about, you know, fun things that are going on in your life, talk about troubles that are going on in your life, you know, just ask about people's lives.
Yeah, I love that. And that's so simple. I mean, we can do that, like ask
Anybody.
a question,
Even
right?
if it's,
Every day.
yeah. Worker at a store, you know, like just asking something beyond, like, how's it going? And then moving on.
Yeah. No, I love that. So listener, we encourage you to ask a question of the children in your life or encourage them to ask a question of you or someone else. And I love that. Awesome. Well, Lily, we love that you're doing this work. We're so thankful for people like you. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you
for being a part of Safe Harbor.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you for listening to Vigilant Voices, Henrico Casas podcast. We have a vision for all children to live in safe, healthy homes. You can help us make that happen. Tell a friend about our podcast and find us on social media.
I believe in the better days.